Good day, beautiful people. I have an interesting one for you all today. So, if you all haven't been hearing about the aliens returning in 2 weeks or so, the black aliens, African American aliens, okay, you need to go and look that up. But this led me down a little rabbit hole. So, people were saying, okay, in 2 weeks, the aliens are coming. And people were trying to figure out, well, where is this 2 weeks coming from? Well, there happens to be a movie called Run, a black movie with black majority cast. And it is coming out on August the 29th. Okay. So, with that being said, I think that kind of corresponded with the whole aliens coming as well. Also, there is a movie called Cosmic Slop, or a TV show called Cosmic Slop, that came out back in the early 90s. And I think that is making a reintroduction. And so a lot of people were putting that and the movie that's coming out on the 29th together. And they came up with this, idea that the aliens are coming now. Whether you believe aliens are ever coming or not, that's up to you. But I'm just saying that that time frame and the whole thing that's going on with the aliens kind of work together with these two movies. Now I'm going to go backwards because this particular movie or TV show, I should say, it had 3 different episodes, but it's all wrapped up into one movie. Okay, so it's like an hour long and it's broken up into 3 different little episodes. So I'm going to do the one called Space Traders, which was the focus of the whole alien return. I'm going to do that one last. There were 2 other episodes. The last episode is called Tang, okay? And basically it is poor people, and there's this black guy and his girlfriend living together, right? So they're in some type of project or apartment. So they are given a gun. A gun is delivered to their door and it says on the note that it has with it that it's for the revolution, right? But in essence, it doesn't turn out to be that way. And the guns were delivered to them on purpose. And a lot of people also say that this is a correlation between different substances being introduced into the African American community and guns as well, because we don't manufacture any of these things, but somehow they are very prevalent in our communities. So that's something that I saw in this particular episode called Tang on the Cosmic Slop movie. But the girlfriend, she is in this abusive relationship already with this guy, and she's the one who always has to go out and make money because he's on house arrest, or has some charges or whatnot. But the boyfriend is really paranoid. He doesn't want her to leave the apartment after they get the gun to go and ask questions to see if anyone else has received it, because again, he's a felon. So in the end, people start offing each other, these couples and people in these apartments. You just hear the guns just start going off, and eventually they end up pointing the gun towards each other as well. And that's where the show ends. Out of mistrust and mistreatment, that's how that story ends. It's a tragic one, but unfortunately you see it sometimes. And I just thought that this one had some deeper meaning. All of the episodes have very deep meanings if you just dig into it a little bit, but found that interesting. I don't want to give too much away because I want you all to see it and make of it what you will make of it. But the next episode is called The First Commandment, and it is a cross between a story about the Holy Mother and or Oshun. And this is actually what this priest in this show or this episode is actually grappling with. He had his original or cultural religion, and they leaned more towards Santeria, but he converted to Catholicism. And so that's the essence of the whole episode, the fact that a lot of us have actually converted or been forced into or introduced to something that was not our original religion. And, in the beginning, there are a group of, white men and a white priest. And what they are wanting to do is take the mother or the statue of Mary out of a church that's in a predominantly black or Hispanic community and take it to a more white population because that's where they feel it would be more better served or whatnot. But they one of the excuses they used is because this particular priest had people in his actual church that practiced Santeria as well. And as you all know, Santeria and Catholicism and religion, all these other religions just all get all mashed and merged together because you had people from other cultures and religions that were forced into these things. So what they did is, in order to mask the fact that they were still practicing their original spirituality and religion, they just mixed it into Christianity and Catholicism and all these other things. And so that's how you got all these mixtures of different religions going on. But basically, the Catholics wouldn't accept the saints of Santeria, and they had an issue with the statue of Mary still being in that particular church. So basically, Oshun revealed herself to this priest because he was leaning more towards his new found Catholic faith and kind of pushing Oshun, his original spirituality, aside. And this movie, even though it was made back in the early 90s, I'm sure they know back then, but now this is very, very pretty much appropriate because there are more and more people coming out of organized religion, particularly, the Muslim religion and Christianity and Catholicism and all of these other things, But I just found this to be very much still, very important and touches what's going on in the current state. And I love the fact that, this goddess revealed herself to him, and she didn't really torment him. It's just that she presented herself as the Mother Mary in order to remind him of where he came from. And I just found that to be a beautiful, story of symbolism in this particular episode and part of this movie. And also you can see that when Oshun is trying to get his attention and bring him, reel him back in, that the parishioners start to actually shout. And you can see Oshun actually dancing up in the place where the statue of Mother Mary used to be. I can also take that to mean that sometimes some symbolism gets crossed and sometimes things get painted over, just like Mother Mary could have taken the place of Oshun and just gotten painted over and her likeness painted over. And sometimes that happens when you have different cultures and over time, different things take on different meanings. Okay? So I found that one to be very interesting. Now, getting back to the main one, which brought me here in the first place, the very first episode is called Space Invaders. And I actually went backwards in explaining them to you, but when you watch the movie, you'll see that Space Invaders is actually first, and then the First Commandment episode is next, and then the Tang episode is actually last. All right, the moment we've all been waiting for. So, if George Clinton is involved in anything, it's going to be quite interesting. But to say the least, George Clinton and the Funkadelics, they actually had a song called Cosmic Slop, and it came out in 1973. Now, this particular movie came out in 1994, and it was made by HBO. Now, it does have a whole lot of stars in it. I can't even name them all. Bernard Shields and Robert Guillaume they star in this particular episode. Aliens came to these people, to the society, to the United States, and they propositioned the United States government. All right, they gave them 5 days to decide. What they wanted was all of the people that were considered black, and they had 2,500 milligrams per square centimeter of melanin in them. Those were the people that the aliens wanted. They wanted men, women, and children that were classified as black by the United States. Something I found freakishly interesting is the fact that the representative alien looked like Ronald Reagan. Also, I found freakishly interesting the fact that they only wanted African Americans. They did not want blacks from any other place. The council talked about many different factors and while they were making the decision of whether or not they wanted to do this. They talked about white guilt, maybe one of the fallouts of doing this. 30% of the military would be cut if, this many black people were to leave. One lady even said that she thinks the aliens may actually treat them better, meaning that, could the aliens actually treat them any worse than they've been treated here in the United States? And I found that interesting. There's one black man on the council, and that's played by Robert Guillaume, and he's actually a Republican. So basically, they come up with this idea to have a yes or no call in where people can vote, where the country can call in and vote whether or not they want to basically sell these black people again or not. So eventually it boils down to, these aliens giving the United States things in return for the black people. And one of the things was the Statue of Liberty was turned into solid gold, and it ended up being worth trillions. All right. And this was one of the trade-offs, because one of the things that the council also talked about was the fact that the country could pay off so much debt if they did this. And they were talking about how the welfare budget would be cut if they did this as well. So there's a lot of little trinkets and tidbits in here that I caught on to. The fact that the wife of Robert in this particular episode, she was actually bleaching her skin. And I'm going to come back to that because that's an interesting point. All right. She wanted to be beautiful, thought that being lighter made her beautiful and things of that nature. But basically, some of the other things they talked about could be a downfall of black people leaving was the fact that 33% of the liquor sales would be affected, and the sale of athletic shoes would be affected, and the sale of pork would be affected. And if the blacks were left, then that would mean that poor whites would now be at the bottom and fighting for a particular place in society. So, Robert tried to come up with this scheme to kind of sway the votes in favor of allowing the black people to stay, but that ended up backfiring on him. They actually stopped selling guns to black people in this movie, in this particular episode as well. And we all know what that was about. So I don't want to give it all away, but those is just, the main points of this particular episode. And they had these people basically marching towards the spaceship when it was time for them to go, because the vote did come out and the majority of the country ruled that they wanted the black people to go ahead and go and leave, right, for these aliens to take them. When the people tried to run, who did not want to get on the alien spaceship, they were actually shot. They were shot in the back. Sound familiar? These people were marching just like you could picture them marching to the point of no return over in Africa. They were just marching in a single file line to this spaceship, and I found that interesting. Now, whether or not the black people that left had a better outcome on the other side out in space with these aliens, or if they didn't and the aliens had an alternative motive to do something with their melanin, because they did make it very specific that they wanted certain black people that had 2,500 milligrams of melanin per centimeter. And one of the doctors in the movie actually made the point that this was equivalent to the color of a brown paper bag. And if you all are not familiar with the brown paper bag method, I actually did a video on my channel about the brown paper bag. There were certain groups and things that Black people could not do during a certain period of time in history if they were any darker than a brown paper bag. And I just found it interesting that the aliens came and they wanted the people that were actually darker than the brown paper bag. Now, remember I was telling you that the wife of the Black Republican played by Robert, she was actually bleaching her skin. Well, that kind of backfired a little bit because in the end, her family was, darker than her children and her husband. So in the end, she actually started darkening her skin and putting on darker makeup in order for her to be able to leave with her husband and her family. So I found that interesting as well. But if you haven't seen Cosmic Slop, it's kind of one of those diamonds in the roughs. It actually reminds you of Twilight Zone if you watch it, but very interesting show. Unfortunately, a lot of the things that are touched on in this movie in all three of these episodes are still things that are actually happening up until this day. So I hope that you all enjoyed my little synopsis here. If you haven't seen Cosmic Slop, you can go on YouTube and see it for free and let me know what you think.